Okay, folks, welcome. We will give this at least another minute for folks to pile into the room, and then we will get started. Thanks for taking the time out of your days to join us for this September meeting of the Bay Area chapter for Cyversity. We're going to talk in a couple of minutes about that new name. I just want to give this an additional minute. Thanks for attending. All right. Again, welcome everyone to the September meeting for the Bay Area chapter of Cyversity. First and foremost, new name change. The entire organization, formerly known and branded as ICMCP, has been rebranded to Cyversity, which obviously shows an emphasis on the use of the educational component of driving folks into this field of cybersecurity and tech. And we're going to talk a little bit about that rebranding today, but we have a fantastic hour teed up for you with some very, very special guests who I will get to introducing here in just a second. So again, I want to thank you for your time. I know that we are all bombarded nearly every day with Zoom meetings and potential webinars and things to attend. So the fact that you have decided to spend this hour with us is certainly most appreciated. And I think we have probably just enough people here to continue to push that message out about what's going on in the field of diversity and inclusion as it relates to the technology and cybersecurity fields. So the mission for the organization Cyversity has not changed. It's still about getting folks to the table, women and traditionally underrepresented minorities. And we all know that each of us online right now has a story about how it is that we've broke into this field. And our goal is to lift up those stories, give folks opportunities to network, train, prepare themselves for careers in cybersecurity and technology. And this is one of the ways that we do it. So we're going to keep pushing that mission along and supporting folks in their desire to break into these fields. I always like to take a moment to highlight the leadership team for the Bay Area chapter. All of us, you see here on the screen, myself, Rolanda, Hakeem, Olivia, and Monique, all bring different skill sets to the table and have dedicated a fairly significant amount of our personal time to this particular endeavor because each one of us is passionate about it. And I always like to take a moment to, one, give thanks to my team for pulling these meetings together every month, and also the efforts that they put into so many of the offshoot programs that we've been able to establish, all of which have supported this endeavor of driving folks into the cybersecurity field. So at any one point in time, if there is something that you want to propose, if there's some introduction you want to make, take a screenshot of this particular screen, contact any one of us. I promise you nothing falls through the cracks with this particular team. We will jump on it. We'll figure out who's the best to handle it, and we will get folks connected, networked, and or get them presented with opportunities to train and develop their skills in the cybersecurity realm. Cyversity has quite a bit going on every month with this new rebranding. As you might imagine, this run through the remainder of 2021 will be important, and there are events going on nearly every month supporting not just the themes of the month, and we want to take a moment to acknowledge the beginning of Hispanic and Latino Heritage Month. So thank you to our Latinx brothers and sisters out there, many of whom are doing some fantastic things in the cybersecurity and technology industries. For those of you that are members of that community, I am sure that you are aware that there are lots of partner and ally organizations out there, to include Cyversity, which are doing a lot to support their efforts in gaining entrance into cybersecurity and tech. I don't have any of them outlined now, but I can think of a handful off the top of my head, like High Tech and other organizations that you should be acquainted with if you're a member of this community and want to support their individual efforts, but also we are an allyship with many of the organizations out there, again, across the board, supporting the spectrum of diverse and inclusive organizations supporting these efforts. We got quite a bit coming up for the remainder of the year as well. October, Cybersecurity Awareness Month. You see the Native American Heritage and Military Veterans Month. And then we will end 2021 with a acknowledgement about disability awareness. And we will try oftentimes to make sure that our guests and our themes or content aligns to the themes of the month. We don't always succeed at that, but we did want to take some time just to acknowledge it. So the Engage series continues. Before the rebranding, it was ICMCP Engage, now Cyversity Engage. These are the series of events happening each month, supported by the local chapters, which is where the meat of the action is happening in this organization. And I would highly, highly encourage you. I think you all as members should have gotten an email today with a bunch of events outlined. I would highly encourage you to evangelize on these events. Send them to your friends, your coworkers, people that you know are interested in joining this community, interested in seeing some of the topics that are presented from the various chapters to include our own. We are not just limiting access and networking and availability to this chapter. It's very important that we spread the word as much as possible. And I am a huge proponent of making sure, since we're all in these virtual times, that we spread the word as much as possible. Maybe the timing of our event doesn't match with your schedule. And so there are other events by other chapters that you may want to drop in on to get a sense as to what this organization is doing to keep us engaged. All right, enough from myself until the end of this. I want to get right to the action. The team from Hacker Valley Studio, Ron Eddings and Chris Cochran, have agreed to do a bit of a show takeover for us. These guys are knocking it out of the park like gangbusters. They have been doing a tremendous amount. It's been a pleasure to watch their ascent in the podcasting world. The Hacker Valley Studio, it's interesting. I will tell them that even folks outside of our community commenting on the content that they're bringing to the table and how these guys are not just talking about interesting topics, but approaching the security topic from a different and variety of viewpoints, bringing on guests and doing a ton of things. I'll let them promote some of the activities they have going on. But if you're not already a listener of the Hacker Valley Studio, I would encourage you to do so. Let me turn it over to these guys. Again, I'm glad they still take my calls. They've blown up and gotten to be so famous in the past 12 to 18 months or so, but I'm glad they're here. I'm going to keep this up to here for a second as they introduce themselves and introduce our special guests. Then I'm going to drop this and let them have a conversation here. But Chris and Ron, please take over here. You guys ready?
Yep. Want to kick us off, Chris?
Oh, you want to do the normal intro?
Yeah, give your normal
Let's
intro,
do it.
please.
What's going on, everybody? You are in the Hacker Valley Studio with your hosts, Ron and Chris.
Yes, sir.
Welcome back to the show.
Glad to be back again. And really, if there's any famous person here, it's MK and the entire Cyversity team. It's amazing to see what you all have built and the type of information and opportunities that you're giving everyone throughout cybersecurity and technology. So special thank you to you all. And also special thank you to our guest of honor, Manju Mude, who is a cybersecurity professional with over 20 years of experience. And we're going to be talking about career development. Wanted to say thank you for joining us, Manju.
Happy to be here. Excited to meet all the wonderful folks at Cyversity. And I actually signed up today. I've known about it for a while, but this was a nice prompt to make me committed, and I'm excited to make it happen.
Outstanding, Manju. We cannot wait to dive a little bit into your background, some career development wisdom that I'm sure you're going to bestow on everyone. But for the folks that don't know who you are just yet, would love to hear a little bit about your background and what you're doing today.
Sure. Hey, everyone. I am Manju Mude. I am a security professional, been in the industry for a bit. I known for various different roles. Most recently, I was at Verizon Media as head of security, culture, and education. And I also had different roles there, head of enterprise security, et cetera, et cetera. And we can go into all those different roles in a bit when we talk about career paths. Prior to that, I was CISO of Splunk. Some folks here might know what Splunk is, and we can talk about all the cool logging things that can happen and why we need them. And then I was also at Apple for many years. I actually joined Apple when iPhone 1 came out. So when I was there for a couple of years. Seen the journey of where security can take you on a smartphone and how you think it through when you're developing a product. And I actually started my career in the government on the East Coast right before 9/11. A couple years before 9/11, and I was with the government during 9/11, and banking, Wall Street, Big Four, had the rounds, but it's been a fun journey, and I've learned a lot throughout the way. And if I can just share whatever I know, hope to help all of those who are uprooting to be amazing professionals and superstars on their journey.
That is great. And one thing I'm always curious about, especially when you hear about people that have many, many years of cybersecurity, you must be a tinkerer at heart. You must be someone that is constantly learning and doing new things. But where does the passion and the fascination for staying in cybersecurity came from? Like, I'm sure you had so many opportunities to pivot and do other things after a career in cybersecurity, but what made you want to stay and focus and double down on your skills?
Yeah, I like many people in the field who've been around a long time, we have good years, good months, bad months. Sometimes we go, should I really be here? And it's hard. And of course, it hits some of the diversity candidates a little bit more, it hits women a little bit more, and we can go into that. What's kept me around is actually, it is tinkering and all of that, but it's actually humanity. I'm a strong believer in humanity and the wellness of human beings and kindness and safety. And that is what has kept me in security all these years. I remember from the early days, I did some cases. I actually started out doing policies. I did cases around people hijacking networks, people using it for nefarious reasons to harm other human beings, those types of things. And I want to help keep all the yuck off the internet. And I also want to help humanity use technology in a better way to keep us safe and healthy and uplift our lives. And that's of course combating some of the evil that goes on as well. And that's what actually keeps me rooted in security. It's, I love the technology, I love the bits and bytes, I love, all the nerd stuff, but in the end, we're all doing this for humanity. I strongly believe that. If I wasn't going into cybersecurity, I probably would have been in nonprofit or something like that. So.
No, that's incredible. If I was a betting person, I'd be willing to bet that love of humanity, that even the tinkerer side of you, that tinkerer's mentality really began much earlier than your cybersecurity career, your technical career. Am I right in that assumption? And what did that look like for you as you were growing up?
Yeah, good question. And I followed a couple of your podcasts, Chris and Ron. So I know this is a common question. You go deep, you go deep, way down in people's childhood and histories, and I'm okay with that. Interestingly enough, I want to send the message that you actually don't have to be in technology or security for a really long time to be in security. I actually have an undergraduate in art history double major. And so all my life, I thought I was going to go into art. My family comes from a medicine background. So I was getting a lot of pressure to go into medicine early on in my career. And I put myself through college. I was a dental assistant. throughout my early years. And so I thought I was going to go into dentistry. I was all sorts of confused. But one thing I did know is I wanted to help humans, and I also had this artistic side. And people, often ask me the question, how did you make that shift from art into tech? And, back in, 20 plus years ago, there was not a lot of opportunity to mix. The only opportunity I had was, I remember towards the end of my degree, undergraduate degree, they made us do some CAD design courses on computers, and computers back in those days were hard to come by and expensive, and they're not as cool as these little things nowadays. So my first email was a Vax account. So yeah, and I remember working on that. I was like, I like this thing. I could spend some time with this. This thing and I are going to be friends. This box with buttons. So I decided to fall in love with the box with buttons, and I really made it a part of my core life. But back to the art piece, I think just creativity, art, tinkering, seeing how far you can push yourself. I remember being in an art studio for 22 hours straight and not even realizing I had been there, and things like that. And that passion, that drive, that ability to commit to something, whether it's keeping our platform safe or whether it's, making a painting, that ability to focus. When you're really into something, you don't even know you're doing it. So that's what I looked for throughout my career, that tinkering piece, and it goes in the right brain, left brain creativity side.
I love the fact that you mentioned helping people, because one of the things that Chris and I learned just by doing the podcast is that we have the opportunity to level the playing field. We both come from environments that didn't have a lot of people that worked in technology. So we didn't have a lot of examples to look up to and see the opportunities that cybersecurity and technology could provide, like providing some socioeconomic equality, leveling the playing field there, and also giving us the opportunity to reach more people. Like we speak to students, we speak to great organizations like Cyversity, and are kind of like doubling down on the impact that we can make to humans. But one of the stories that I always like to say is that I'm a son of cybersecurity. Cybersecurity has almost been like a parent to me. It's taught me a lot of lessons, and I was raised in technology by some amazing mentors. Like, I look at cybersecurity as really a parent and an opportunity to grow myself. What has been the impact for you that cybersecurity has left on you? Like, what are you internalizing from just all of the opportunities that you had?
Yeah, actually, I really like how you phrase that, Ron. That cybersecurity is a parent. I think it becomes a core part of your identity in everything you do. There's also that trust issue. You give everything that side eye and say, "Do I really trust this?" Trust must verify. It's kind of who you are at your core, right? And that's who I am at my core as well. I think that cybersecurity is, if you've been in it for a long time, it is your parent. I've seen the ups and downs. I've seen, doing the compliance stuff and doing the technical control stuff and vulnerability management and pen testing, all the way up to breach management. And I got to tell you, the biggest, most impactful moment for me, I think, when it all came together is, the last 5 years, is that breach management. You hear these stories about, we're doing all these controls, and we're doing PCI controls, and we're doing all this fun security stuff and hard security stuff, but you don't really see the other side of it unless you've been on an investigation or your organization's been a target. And once you go through that, and once you see that there are nation state attackers, there are actual human adversaries coming at you, and you have to keep your platform safe and clean, that's when it kind of clicks, right? Otherwise, it's going through the motions and you don't see the other side. And when you go through that other side and you've lived through a breach, that's the biggest teachable moment, I think, that really made it all come together. And you go, aha, this is why I do this. This is the lesson learned. And this is why we go through all this rigor. Something as simple and tactical as, deleting old accounts that aren't being used. We say, it's sloppy, whatever, let them just hang around, let's just move on. We're too busy, move on to the next account. Well, those dormant accounts that seem to hang around, those are the very things that attackers like to leverage. And these are things I learned along the way. Little tidbits like that.
And that's what really highlights cybersecurity as such an important facet of business, of life in general. People seem to forget that these attacks have real world effects. A lot of times we get stuck behind the SIM, we get stuck in the security operations center, we're dealing with false positives, and we're dealing with architecture, and we're dealing with the things that prepare us for that breach. But a lot of times it doesn't happen. Sometimes we're lucky, sometimes we're prepared. But really, when that breach happens, just like you were saying, that's when you show what you're worth. You show where all that training, all of the purple teaming, you show where all of this testing really comes to fruition. And so when you think about a career in cybersecurity, really what you're trying to protect at the end of the day is people. You're not just trying to protect machines. You're not just trying to protect infrastructure. You're protecting people, their information, sometimes their money, sometimes super sensitive information like health information. So when you think about people that are coming into cybersecurity today, because I'm sure it's much different than when we came in, what do you think about the folks that are joining that workforce today? And we can probably spend a lot of time going through the entire spectrum of, coming into cybersecurity, then, getting promoted, then becoming somebody that people lean on, being a mentor. But what about that entrance into cybersecurity today? What do you see that's different, and what do you see that's the same?
The same as when I started?
As when you started versus the way people start today?
Oh yeah, sure. I actually don't know if there's a lot of things that's the same from when I started. I think it's really changed. The biggest thing I think that stands out for me, and this is what I like to tell people who are even slightly interested in it or might even be considering a career path in it, is you don't have to know how to code. You don't have to be technical. Does it help? Yes. Does it, should you only focus on technology if that's a path you want to go down? Sure. But there's so many options to cybersecurity now. You can go on the policy side, you can go on the HR side, you can go on the business and profit analysis side. There's so many avenues to it. And you can find a career path in it, regardless of whether you're a great coder or not. And that's the biggest thing. There's a big ecosystem that we need in our world around security. Every company, every large company for sure needs it around security. And you don't just need developers, or you don't just need pen testers or architects. You need the whole thing. So for those of you who might be doubting yourself and saying, well, I'm not great at blah, 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 I guarantee you have some superstar quality, some magical power that will and can be used in cybersecurity, whether it's writing, whether it's negotiation, whether it's people management, whatever it might be, there is a place for you in cybersecurity.
Manju, I have to warn you, I am a big fan of programming. So I'm a bit biased, right? Like I always recommend people to program, but I agree. I think that there are so many opportunities that we don't look at as technologists. Like Chris and I, we didn't understand that we had an opportunity to become expert marketers and expert salespeople also by just way of cybersecurity and technology. But one of the things that I think is really hard to articulate and get the point across is the exciting points of things like policy, of HR and cybersecurity. Now that you've touched so many areas and avenues in the field, what are some things that you can say that would potentially excite some people about going down the routes that aren't just programming and red team and pen testing focus?
Yeah, I think that, again, there's all types of skills. Some folks might say, well, I follow politics and I'm really good at politics, right? I like policies. And, if you're the kind of person that listens to the news and follows policies and all of the things that are shaping humanity, that you can translate some of that into a corporate job. You can become a policy maker. You can be a policy designer around cybersecurity. You can work with the legal teams. So these are options for you if you're going into the field and you feel like the red teaming or the coding is not your first option to go into. So these are ways to find your talent. You might like presenting on a stage, or have like a theatrical edge to you, a little bit of artistic edge to you. We need people like that as well, because that translates to being able to convince organizations on what we need, how to improve the organization. You might be the one who's making that presentation or that business case to the leadership to get that funding or that money or whatever it might be. So I think there's a lot of things about figuring out who you are and what your strengths are as a person. What is it you like? What is that drives you? And those things can be applied. How do you get someone excited to go into HR or policy? I think it's depending on if you want to shape the lives of many people and create policies. If you want to train a large organization. One of the things I got to do in my career is become a champion of culture, security culture and training. And I was able to train, thousands of people on things like application security, OWASP principles, things like that. And those are all really fundamental. Now, did I have to, sit and demo the code itself? Well, actually, I didn't. I had to orchestrate what that platform would look like. I had to orchestrate the right instructors, and I had to create a program that was globally reach all the developers in the community. So that's an example of where you can actually take something you're passionate about or good at, in this case, developer education, and disseminate it and take it slightly more to the HR side or the policy side and disseminate it through the workforce. But there's many ways, and if you think you can touch so many lives, whether it's in a corporation or outside the corporation, that's exactly what will drive you to find your path.
I'm so glad you brought up touching people's lives, because that was a driving force for Ron and myself. The reason we went from practitioners to creating content is because we wanted to have that high leverage. We wanted to impact as many people as we could possibly do it. And we did a great job in a part-time basis, but now we're doing it full-time. That's all we're thinking about is how do we inspire people? How do we empower people to do things in cybersecurity more efficiently, more effectively, and more creatively? And so that's why we made that transition. When you think about folks, they get into cybersecurity and they might start at something like that's akin to a help desk, or they might start on a SOC floor somewhere, but they see these other avenues of cybersecurity that they want to pivot to. And sometimes that pivot can be difficult for folks to do it, especially if they've never done it in a professional capacity. What is that piece of advice that you would have for people that see something else in cybersecurity that they want to do that is more in alignment with who they are as a person? What piece of advice would you have for that person that wants to go somewhere else within cybersecurity?
Oh, wow. I say, it depends on what it is, but I say tinker and make friends. Tinker and make friends, make those network contacts. If it's internally within a company, become buddies with that department or that person who's practicing that in that department, and learn, shadow from them, shadow what they're doing and see if that's something you really want to do. And then in your own time, read about it, tinker, learn, figure out if this is something that you get excited about. Sometimes we can see things from afar and say, oh, I want to do that. But when you get hands-on, you're like, oh, I'm not quite sure. So, practicing and getting hands-on with it is a big piece of it. But I would say, above all, remove that fear and be bold and be brave and go for it. Go for it. And you'll never know if you don't try. Go for it, make those friends, make those network connections in that field, and just say, I'm interested in what this thing is that you do, whether it's vulnerability management, whether it's incident response, whatever it is, and I want to learn. A really good place, and I've hired a lot of folks, a really good place to start your career is incident response or a SOC. When you come in, and I think that the SOC has sometimes more of an appetite to take people from different career paths, different tech career paths into it. It's a really good experience because you get to experience small and sometimes large scale incidents and see what the impact is and do the detection, remediation, repair, that whole cycle. And then you get to rinse and repeat constantly. And that's a very good grounding for figuring out where you want to go next in cybersecurity if you started out in one technology realm and you want to go into another.
SOC is definitely a great place to begin. And when I started my career, it was really help desk. There was an abundance of help desk opportunities like IT help desk, network engineering help desk. And the unfortunate thing about these opportunities was it was shift work and the pay was not that great. So I ultimately decided to double down on myself and do what you're speaking about. I tinkered with technology and focused on a specific skill. I focused on pen testing for the most part when I first started my career. But I think a lot of people might not have that assurance in themselves and the time commitment that it takes to gather those skills to get that type of opportunity. What would you say to those that are looking at SOC? They don't necessarily want to do that type of opportunity. The pay's not that great. How can they negotiate with themselves and also with potential employers to get the position that they want?
Yeah, you kind of have the makings of it already, Ron. You said it. Go tinker, go figure out if that's something you want to do. Go play with that technology that they're using. If you can get a license or get your hands on it somehow, that's a great place to start. Truth be told, I myself have gone through stages in my career where I definitely have had shift work. I've definitely been on call. The one role I had, I was on call 24/7 for 3 years. So that's tough. You don't really have a life. But that's kind of what I had to go through to learn and really figure out what I wanted to do. And I agree with you. Sometimes the pay is not that great either, and you need to make ends meet and put food on the table. If there's any way you can figure out a way to get both of those things met, I would say, test the waters, go for that SOC career or go for something like that. Give yourself a chance, even if it's for 6 months. Bite the bullet, dive into it. The things that you will learn in that role are so much more valuable than whatever you think you'd be giving up. And so I would actually say go for it. Otherwise, you'll be kind of on your own journey to kind of learn on the side, and you can do both at the same time. I believe everyone here is pretty motivated. The fact that they're here already, and they want to change their path, their career, and grow and network. And I think people are capable of probably doing both at the same time, and you'll be surprised where you can grow. But networking is key at the end of it all, because no matter how much you know and how much you practice, if you don't feel like you have the right access to connections or the right access to the right opportunities, that's where folks will find the biggest hurdle or win.
You just said a trigger word for us, and that's the word journey. We talk about stories all the time, and a lot of times those stories is all about the journey. And any journey worth traveling on, you're going to hit obstacles along the way. Some are going to be bigger than others, and some you can just sidestep. But is there a particular obstacle in your mind from the breadth of your entire career that not only did you surmount, but also it made you just a better person and a better practitioner at the end of the day?
Sure. I can think of, the funny thing about obstacles is when you're going through them, you're very unhappy and you're very, you don't see the light at the end, right? And you don't see how this is going to all tie together and help your life. Obstacles can be bad bosses. Obstacles can be roles that that may be different than what you thought it was. So I think I spoke a little bit about breach management. I think that was really an impactful obstacle for me. I joined an organization in a couple weeks after I had joined. They said, "Hey, we just had this breach, and you had to go work on it." And it was a very, very well-known breach. That being said, I thought, "Oh my God, am I the scapegoat? What is this obstacle that I'm facing? Did I sign up for the wrong thing?" And of course, pulling those 80, 90-hour weeks in the beginning while I was working on that breach, that was a huge obstacle. It made me feel like, is this all worth it? Did I do the right thing? But I stuck it out, and at the end of it, it was so worth it. And it made me a much more complete security leader, and it made me much more holistic in the way I think about security, way less checkbox, way more organizational and history driven in the way that I think about strategy as well. The other moment I had in my career that I that I probably don't think is that exciting, but I joined a big four company, and at that time I wanted to work on, I worked in the attack and penetration center, and I wanted to work on firewall reviews and firewall logs and network management, those types of things. But, they had me out doing SOX audits at customers. And I was so annoyed by SOX audits. And they, of course, and PCI was coming out, and they trained me in PCI and, all of those compliance things. And I learned a lot of those. And I was very annoyed because I thought, this is not what I signed up for. I wanted to do firewalls and network architecture and things like that. I didn't want to do SOX audits. So, but I stuck it out and I did SOX audits. And when I came out of it, actually, I became like a pro, and people would hire me for consulting around compliance. And I became a compliance kind of advisor. And that's how I got my job at Apple, is they were going through some compliance stuff, and they needed someone with that compliance and technical expertise. So sometimes you think, oh God, I don't want to do this, but it's going to come out that it's going to come in real handy at some point in your career.
So true. Your experience and all the stories that you're sharing remind me of, you're just someone that is great at responding to information. Like you were saying that you did the breach management thing. You probably had to answer questions that you had no idea what the answer was. Like you just had to figure out a way to get that answer. Same for compliance, same for audit. You have to figure out a way to get this information that's required to report and respond to someone or some program. And, what are some of the things that, looking back on, that you would change, if any? Is there anything that you would change about the route? Or is there any skills that you would want to get earlier, or even skills that you want to get now? What do you think that you would change about your experience?
Sure. And there's some good questions coming in the chat as well. So I'm looking at that. What would I change? I actually, the life that you live and the circumstances you've had and experiences you've come across have made you who you are. So I don't really think I would change anything in my career. I would say, early on in my journey, I did have a little bit more of a difficult path explaining why I went from art into information systems and information security. So that was kind of a hard thing to get into, explaining that. But, I forged through it, and I took roles that probably were much more junior, and of course, very much negotiated on the comp, and didn't get probably what I deserve at the time. But that perseverance, I think, is what has allowed me to rise in my career. So perseverance, I think, goes a really long way. I don't know if I would change anything. The things that I would change are the ability to move on. I think I sometimes, while perseverance is good, knowing when to move on is also a trait. So being able to say, okay, something's not treating me right. Someone or some organization is not treating me right, and being able to call it out and move on and have the courage for that. So that's probably something I would change. I didn't have that courage to call out dysfunction early on in my career. And I think as time went on, I realized it's okay to do that. And I think the great question in the chat is about what gave me the confidence to try cybersecurity. Yeah. So speaking of perseverance and courage and confidence, I think that's a good segue. I'm not quite sure what gave me the confidence to forge into cybersecurity. I knew that there's good people and bad people, and bad things and good things in this world, and I wanted to reduce some of the yuckiness, and that's what keeps me committed to it. I wanted to help keep things neat and clean for the people who are there for a reason, and who want to use the platforms and who want to use technology for a reason. And that's what keeps me there today. As far as confidence, I don't know, maybe I was just born with that attitude, that gusto. I think I've always kind of had that feeling. I don't think I was quite as bold early on in my life and career, but I was always confident enough to say, okay, I feel strongly about something and having opinions, and it's okay to be opinionated and voice your opinions. So that's carried me through.
That's incredible. And it makes me think back to the very beginning of this conversation. You talked about the humanity of cybersecurity, the humanity of life in general. And so I wanted to ask, for anyone out there that's listening to this or watching this, they're thinking about cybersecurity from a very technical standpoint, but they're seeing the value and looking at it the way that you do, the way that we do, and that's bringing the human component back into cybersecurity. What is that piece of advice that you'd have for someone that wants to rehumanize cybersecurity to give them that inspiration to be even better tomorrow?
That's a great question. I will say the biggest thing, something that keeps me really grounded, is helping those you care about and making security a part of their lives. So we all have friends and family, and sometimes parents who are like locked out of their accounts or difficult things in their lives around the technology. They don't know how to use it or something like that. I always thought that we should, as cybersecurity professionals, it is our job, whether we do it in the corporation or we do it at home or we do it for our loved ones, to take a piece of what we know and impart that knowledge on our loved ones. You know, as annoying as it is to be help desk for your mom and dad, sharing that security for those who you care about, sharing those security practices, something will click, and you'll realize now there are millions and millions of people just like that. Those folks that you know in this world that you love and care for, that need that little extra security help or that tech help, there's millions of people like that, not just the ones that are close to you. And the things that you do every day are protecting them as well. So there, you want to draw it back, and you make it about yourself, you make it about your loved ones, and then you're reminded that that circle exists way beyond just your loved ones. And that's why you do this.
Incredible, Manju. I mean, there's no better way to close this out. For folks that want to stay up to date with you and all the tremendous things that you have going on in your life, what are some of the best ways that people can do that?
Yeah, sure. I'm a frequent user of LinkedIn, so feel free to LinkedIn me. Feel free to chat me on LinkedIn. I also have a Twitter account at Manju Mude. You can reach me on Twitter. I love helping people grow in their career. I also, I saw a little comment in the thread about compensation and how do people get that piece, get a little bit better in their compensation negotiation. I think that's also something people need to work on. So if you need advice on that, by all means, reach out to me. I want you to get better. I want you to have more, and I want you to help humanity, and I want you to get paid more. So, so reach out to me for any of those things. on those
Excellent. Well, well, with that being said, that's amazing. Helping people with more opportunity and also more compensation. Hopefully someone has questions. We still have a few minutes for Q&A for anything that we didn't get to. So drop your questions for Manju and also for us if anything comes to mind over the next few minutes.
Hey, I got a quick question people may be afraid to ask. Manju, can you talk a little bit about what it's meant for you to be a woman in this field, really talking about what it's like? I mean, you've been in this for decades. You have to have been really the only one like yourself at the table for most of your career. Talk a little bit about what that's been like, and quite frankly, if you're optimistic, have you seen it change over the years?
Sure, yeah. I'll take that a step further, MK. Now I will say not just a woman of color, an immigrant, many other intersectionalities, I will say. It was very difficult in the beginning. I think I had to kind of I emitted this personality in the beginning that was, quiet and know my place and all of that kind of stuff. And I think that that's changed. I don't think people need to do that anymore. I was often the only woman in the room. I was often the person who was asked to take notes. To this day, I, even as a CISO, I'll go into a room and I'll get people or vendors sit around and wait and say, oh, when is the CISO showing up? Like, that's me. So, so I still get that. But I think it's gone a long way. I am extremely excited to see what the industry has done in the last 5+ years. I'm glad we have diversity at the table. I'm glad we have women at the table. It's certainly not as much as it should be. And I want to help change that. Those biases, they take a long time to to get rid of. And when I was at Apple, I believe I was the first woman in cybersecurity at Apple. And often I am, let's call it what it is. I'm in a room full of white males. Sometimes there's differences in ages, differences in experience. I think that women nowadays, people, our BIPOC community, you shouldn't let that get in the way at all about your dreams. Just go for it. It's actually the world that needs to come up and rise to our capability. It's not us. We already got it. So I encourage you to just go for it, because I don't think that that's a hurdle as it used to be. It still is, but the more of you that rise up, the more of you women that we have at the table, and the more diversity we have at the table, and the more people that are calling it out, the better we're going to make life for ourselves and the next tech generation.
We have another question from Monique. What do you think the next chapter of your career will be, given how cybercrime has evolved, new opportunities that did not exist before, AI, IoT, et cetera?
Yeah, I think, AI is interesting because I do love AI, and those things are all, I feel like they are somewhat buzzwords because vendors use them constantly. And I'm not quite sure what the next place in my career will be, but I will say I want to bring it back to humanity. And some people, want to go climb the ladder and they just want more money or they want more power. I'm actually at the stage in my life, in my career, where I want to give back to the community, as something has to have purpose and meaning. So as I'm growing in my career and changing in my career, I'm no longer necessarily just looking for title or money or any of those things. I'm actually at the place where I think I want purpose, and I want to know that organization I'm with has purpose and is affecting the goodwill of many people, or doing something to make the underserved a little bit better. And so that's what I'm looking for in terms of technology. I think AI, IoT, all of that, really important. I think we're going to have to pay attention to more than anything is politics and nation state. Actually, I think it's affecting way more organizations than we think. The interwoven nature of politics in this world, and global crime and espionage and all of that, that is the stuff that no matter what size of organization you are, you'll have to pay attention to, because as we saw with SolarWinds and so many other attacks in the last couple of years, it doesn't take a big company to have a big breach. It takes a small opportunity for a nation state to weave its way in. So those are things we're going to have to pay attention to. And organizations that are just kind of siloed, saying, oh, we're not a target of nation state, I think are hopefully opening their eyes and realizing they are. And politics are definitely a part of our world now.
All right, let's see. We have another question. What is the best resource approach for people who aren't tinkerers and have zero background to get started in cybersecurity? I know some people who are looking for a career change, but are afraid because they aren't technical.
Yeah, I kind of touched on that a little bit in earlier. I am absolutely sure, regardless of whether you are technical or afraid you're not technical enough, we let our own fears get in the way. It's not that you're not technical, it's that you think you're not technical. You are technical. The very fact that you're sitting here and you're using a computer and you join the Zoom makes you technical enough. You just have to push yourself and take it to the next step. I guarantee Corbin and whoever else has this question, you probably have some talent or some passion that makes you engage, whether it's writing, whether it's leading people, whether it's working on policies, whatever it might be. And you have avenues to explore cybersecurity in those areas as well.
Awesome. Hey, you guys did not disappoint. Manju, Ron, Chris, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We appreciate opportunities like this to really evangelize on people's stories. I think representation matters. These stories matter. Someone today will either hear this story or they'll hear it on repeat, and it will give them the individual confidence they need to break into this field. And that's all it takes sometimes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. This is what Cyversity is bringing to you guys on a weekly, monthly basis, annual basis. We're really, really doubling down on getting these people's stories out so that folks can get motivated about breaking into this field. You see here, I'm not going to go through the membership benefits. If I had to put one thing or pick one thing off of this slide, it would really be the networking opportunities that you get to hear from people like Manju, hear from people like Chris and Ron, connect with them outside of venues like this, ask their advice on how to break into this field. And as if there's anyone on the line who's an executive, if you're not spending time motivating other people about getting into this field, you are not maximizing your impact to the industry. I know sometimes it can be daunting. I mean, the numbers are so horrific in terms of the presence of women and underrepresented minorities, but we can all move the needle just a little bit. Thank you, everyone, for attending this particular session. As you see here on the screen, every couple of times a week, there are new engaged sessions. Please pass this kind of information on to your cohorts, your friends, people you know who are trying to break into this industry. These topics, the attacker mindset, CISO fireside chats, much like the one we had here, social engineering and cybersecurity education. I mean, the topics go on, and each one of the chapters and our home element or headquarters entity are bringing this stuff to you guys on a weekly basis because it's important for you to hear these stories. Let me give a moment to my leadership team. If there's anything that you guys want to bring to the table right now's the time. Hakeem first, if you got anything for the audience.
No, thank you to our host for that takeover. That was amazing. Check into their podcast. I use it for my weekly or bi-weekly motivation just to try harder and try more. And it's good hearing all these stories. Thank you, Manju. That is a very exciting journey. I was also an English major and I made it into this field. So not necessarily an artist, but no, thank you. Look forward to our sign up for SANS training 2022. Should be kicking off probably in Q4 this year. And I'm sure there's some other opportunities, and please reach out to your chapter leaders if you need guidance, support, or you have any questions in any way, shape, or form.
Awesome. Monique.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, I want to actually repeat my thanks as well. This was really interesting for someone coming from the background of instructional design, and my concentration is cybersecurity awareness and training. It's great to hear things that talk about other positions in cybersecurity, not just the highly technical roles. Wanted to just bring everyone's attention. We have a cohort group. I call it a meetup, and we're actually going through certifications. We had some seats donated to us by Coursera, so people could actually work toward a certification in some particular area in cybersecurity. And with that, we have monthly meetups where we have a guest speaker that speaks not so much from the high level, maybe the CISOs and execs, but more a manager. This is how I got there. these are the skills that I see are needed for this type job, and this is what I do to make myself attractive to recruiters and for job placement. And so I'm going to try and open that up for something if people would just like to come and hear these sessions, and also we record them and we can kind of put them out there, because I think they're just valuable just to kind of learn other people's experience and their journey from a little bit more of a, I wouldn't say technical, but from a practitioner's perspective. So just to let everyone know, we'll open that up. It'll probably communicate it via Slack or something of that nature.
Okay, awesome. Olivia. I'm not sure if Olivia had to drop. Olivia, are you still with us?
There you go. I was on mute.
Okay.
I just want to let folks know that I am the leadership team contact to our Bay Area Community College cybersecurity programs, and they are incredible, particularly even for those folks that already have degrees in art or whatever, and they want to come back and make a career change. So any questions about that pathway as well as others, I'd love to talk to you.
Awesome. Rolanda.
I just want to say, for those of you in the community that are celebrating Hispanic and Latinx Heritage Month, I just want to say celebrate and enjoy this wonderful month that we're coming upon. But also just make sure you take some time, meet, network with some others in this group. This is what this is for, so that you can grow and you can connect, so that you can make a difference and expand in this industry. So just, it's so excited, and thank you so much, Manju.
Awesome. Hey, with the rebranding, we need help, as you might imagine, getting the word out about the name change. On Twitter, under one site or at one Cyversity, Facebook also at one Cyversity, on LinkedIn, simply Cyversity. Please follow these pages. Please retweet, re-amplify the information that's being pushed out. It's only through that we get maximum coverage to the people who need access to this kind of information. I always like to end the meeting with some acknowledgement to our sponsors, specifically for the program associated with our SANS and now Cyversity, Diversity Cyber Workforce Academy. As Hakeem noted, we're going to start probably in Q4 soliciting for this again. It'll be version 2.0 and probably have some additional elements and sponsors to it. But these three organizations, titans in their own right, are putting their money where their mouth is and actually supporting bringing folks into this field through scholarship opportunities. So I always want to thank these folks for lifting us up and helping us to do what it is that we do. Thank you again for your time. You guys can see us next month. You'll stand by for the social media messages on the date and the content. Of course, it's Cybersecurity Awareness Month. That'll probably be the bulk of what we're talking about in terms of maybe some kind of technical offering or discussion. But thanks again, and we look forward to connecting with you guys again soon. And thanks again to the Hacker Valley Studios team and also Manju for joining us during this September meeting. Take care, everyone.